Namaskar viewers, hello and welcome to this special broadcast on Sansad TV. I am Teena Jha. India, the world's largest democracy and the cradle of democratic values, is once again taking the lead in shaping global parliamentary dialogue and cooperation. From 14th to 16th of January, New Delhi hosts the 28th Conference of Speakers and Presiding Officers of the Commonwealth, the CSPOC 2026, a landmark gathering of parliamentary leadership from across the Commonwealth countries. Hosted by the Parliament of India under the leadership of Lok Sabha Speaker Om Birla, CSPOC 2026 is said to be the largest and the most grand in the history of the forum. As many as 61 speakers and presiding officers from Commonwealth nations and semi-autonomous parliaments are going to be in attendance, including the presidents of the Inter-Parliamentary Union and the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association. The conference will be formally inaugurated by Prime Minister Narendra Modi on the 15th of January, underscoring India's growing role as a global champion of democratic values and parliamentary cooperation. This year's CSPOC focuses on some of the most pressing and contemporary challenges facing the legislatures worldwide: the use of artificial intelligence and social media in parliamentary functioning, innovation and citizen participation in democratic institutions, and the security, health and well-being of the members of parliament.
भारत में ये सम्मेलन 1971 में, 1986 में और 2010 में भारत को ये सम्मेलन की मेजबानी करने का अवसर मिला है। अब 16 साल बाद भारत को ये मेजबानी करने का अवसर प्राप्त हुआ है। जो सम्मेलन के मुख्य विषय हैं वे संसद में आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस एआई का प्रयोग, नवाचार, निगरानी और अनुकूल संतुलन बनाकर रखना, सोशल मीडिया पर सांसदों का प्रभाव, नागरिकों के बीच संसद की समझ का विस्तार करने तथा संसदीय प्रक्रिया में उनकी सहभागिता को मतदान के बाद भी बढ़ाने की चर्चा, संसद सदस्यों द्वारा संसदीय कर्मियों की सुरक्षा, स्वास्थ्य और कल्याण, और 5वां विशेष सत्र लोकतांत्रिक संस्थाओं की मजबूती करने में अध्यक्षों पीठासीन अधिकारियों की भूमिका। इन विषयों पर 2 अलग-अलग सत्रों में इसमें चर्चा होगी। हमारे लोकसभा और राज्यसभा के पुराने जो सभा कक्ष है उनमें इन सभी अध्यक्षों को 2 अलग-अलग कक्षों में बांटकर 2 दिन तक लगातार चर्चा होगी।
Over the next 60 minutes, we will talk about the relevance of these themes in today's rapidly evolving political landscape, also the evolution of CSPOC since its creation back in 1969, and also how this unique forum continues to empower parliamentary democracy, strengthen institutions, and most importantly, deepen global parliamentary cooperation. We are joined by an illustrious panel of experts, so let me begin the program by introducing them to you. With me in the studio is Dr. Rajiv Nayan, Professor at the Nelson Mandela Center for Peace and Conflict Resolution, Jamia Millia Islamia. He's a former research associate at the Manohar Parkar Institute of Defence Studies and Analysis. Dr. Nayan, thank you for your time. Welcome to the program. Senior journalist Mr. K.V. Prasad will be joining us shortly in the studio. Joining us virtually is Ambassador Suresh Goel. He's a former diplomat. Also, Mr. Pathikrit Payne, he's a senior research fellow, Dr. Syama Mookerjee Research Foundation. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us on this special telecast to discuss the themes of the CSPOC. But most importantly, Dr. Nayan, let me begin the program with you. It's an important fact, it's a matter of immense pride for India that under our leadership, the CSPOC is going to be one of the grandest and the largest ever in the history of the forum. Speakers and presiding officers of more than 60 plus countries and semi-autonomous parliaments have confirmed their presence. How do you think this gives or strengthens India's role in shaping norms of parliamentary democracy, at least within the Commonwealth grouping?
Look, as our speaker had earlier pointed out, that this was the 4th opportunity when India is hosting this event.
Right.
And India has got a history of not only hosting this event on presiding officers and speakers conference, but also like G20 we had hosted. And in fact, India had demonstrated its credentials, democratic credentials, its growing role in the international system, its urge to intervene in world politics, also to intervene and to play a very constructive role in global affairs. So India has been just giving the opportunity to other speakers and presiding officers that how we have conducted our democracy, how we have conducted our legislative houses, and how we can share the best practices. So India is not going to impose any particular values, as you have rightly pointed out. India is also one of the democratic countries, and we have got we have got excellent credential of our democratic practices, and we are going to show how we are intervening in the matters in the democratic conduct of affairs, how we are developing good relationship with the executive of the country, which generally runs the day-to-day affairs of the country. Plus many challenges, global challenges are there. There are many challenges which each and every nation is facing, which are the nations, countries which are participating in this forum. So they all will be discussing together how we have deliberated in our house and the problems we faced. It is not, we can be frank about that also, the technology we use and how we can develop research and development procedures. So we get, as one of the slogans is, beyond procedures. So we should not be bound by the procedures. So we should be just liberating ourselves from these procedures which can really stifle your working or you can do or your governance. So how you can ensure better governance. So all I am expecting that this assembly, these people, these leaders will be discussing all the aspects of governance, how to ensure transparency, how to connect with the people. This is all parliaments, or you can say legislative bodies. Somewhere it may not be called parliament, it may be called something else. But the idea is that it is a supreme legislative body of a country. How the supreme legislative body connects to its people and how it gets the articulation from these in these bodies from the people, the representatives, civil society. So all these are very complicated process. It may appear cumbersome, but how this cumbersome or complexity is being simplified by the leaders, by the person who is managing the affairs, the chairpersons or other presiding officers, or whatever name is called in different countries. So I think in these 2 days we are expecting that India will showcase its leadership. Now our speaker has said this is the fourth largest basically economy of the world, third largest startups. So how we are going to use technologies, how artificial intelligence you have pointed out. So this is generating excitement all over the world.
Absolutely. We'll come and discuss in greater detail about some of the themes which have been meticulously thought over. It pertains to some of the contemporary challenges that countries the world over are facing. But before that, Mr. Pathikrit, let me bring you in, because when we say it gives India an opportunity to reaffirm its leadership role, at least in shaping norms and rules of parliamentary diplomacy. We are not just the world's largest democracy today. We are the cradle of democratic values. The world looks up to us, at least in the manner in which we are working towards connecting with people and, most importantly, making democracy relevant and significant for the last person standing in the line. In that context, let me take out a fact from what Dr. Nayan also pointed out. You heard the speaker say this is the 4th time that India is hosting the CSPOC. We successfully hosted it thrice earlier in 1971, in 1986, also in 2010. But even though the CSPOC returns to India after a gap of 16 years, we know that India during this period has undergone significant transformation, both domestically but also in its global standing. What do you think is India's biggest strength today, something that will help us strengthen our leadership position when it comes to shaping the future of parliamentary diplomacy?
Good evening. See, look at it. Most countries, especially that of the West, became developed first and they became democracy later. India is the only country which started as a democracy after 1947, and then they started the journey towards development. So we have always been a country which is known for Shastrat, which means we believed in the philosophy of dealing out, sorting out differences through dialogue, and we have maintained it till date. Secondly, it's very important to understand that, holding election in a country of 1.5 billion people, taking care of their aspirations, ensuring that, the last man standing, his aspirations or basic needs are also fulfilled through the concept of Antodaya, which is being, put forward by the government of India under Prime Minister Modi's leadership, to ensure that you have money allocated for the highest level of infrastructure development, for deep tech research, and at the same time, you ensure that you have something like a Mudra Yojana, so that, people at the lower end of the strata who are into micro enterprise running also get included in the financial architecture, to ensure that no one, has to pay for a vaccine during the most critical COVID period, to ensure that 80 crore plus people get additional free ration from the COVID time onwards till today, to ensure that, almost 50 crore families have been more or less included into the Ayushman Bharat. So that shows that, first and foremost, democracy is all about taking everyone along. Today, in India's democracy, the kind of elections that are held in India, the kind of precision, the kind of efficiency, where the election commission sends agents for voting, even when there are only one or two voters in a particular place, to ensure that in a country where the richest and the poorest have the same right of voting, one single vote, I think that makes a lot of difference. And let me tell you why it is so very important to understand how democracy is important for the world. Look, parliamentary democracy, if you look at some of the other countries where protests are happening, for example, Iran. I mean, I don't want to comment on the internal affairs of Iran in this particular debate, but look at what happens when you are an autocratic country or an authoritarian country. You do not have a barometer to understand whether people are happy or not. You take them for granted. And suddenly there's an implosion that happens, which becomes very difficult to contain. And at the same time, we have seen certain countries which are also democracy, but they are presidential in nature. And there is overwhelming power in the hand of the president. And it creates a lot of challenges, as we certainly right now witness, if I may take the name, in case of United States. So in that way, parliamentary democracy, number one, creates the right kind of checks and balances. Number two, in spite of all the challenges, as a country, we remain united. That's the plurality that this country's democracy has always flourished, survived, and celebrated. That itself is a great thing. And that is the kind of consensus building that India wants the global multilateral institutions to follow. In fact, one of the first things that Prime Minister Modi mentioned every time he went to the United Nations General Assembly congregations in September every year is that United Nations will need to take care of the aspirations of the smaller countries or the countries of the global south. The manner in which Prime Minister Modi ensured that poor countries who do not have resources to make their own vaccines, at a time when the Western countries, developed countries, were accused of vaccine hoarding, the way India went ahead and gave them free COVID vaccine, that was a benchmark. So there are things that India has done not just within the country, but it has given templates to the rest of the world that, look, this is what I believe in. You can follow it. I'm not trying to impose it on you. And India has gone ahead and stated that, look, it is not necessary for us to be either pro-West or anti-West. We can just be non-Western at times and have our own view of things.
Absolutely.
So
I think it's these factors, it's this approach that has helped India become a bridge between the global north and the global south. Ambassador, to you now, let's understand from you, because we've seen in the face of crisis, in the face of complexities in the global geopolitics, India has adapted a unique diplomatic identity that it has created for itself. The world now sees India as a country that can negotiate with all warring parties because of the unique approach that India's foreign policy has had in recent years. If you could explain to us and our viewers how parliamentary diplomacy complements the traditional diplomacy and how it strengthens our traditional diplomacy as well. Ambassador, please unmute yourself.
Okay. Before I come to your question, do give me a few minutes, basically because it's important to understand what India's USP is as a democracy to understand the unique role that India can play in promoting the kind of cooperation, not just between the parliament, but also the functioning of the parliaments to ensure the kind of a development and growth aspirations of most of the countries. Number one, most of the countries in the Commonwealth Parliamentary Union or Association are those countries which actually were British colonies for a long time. And as they became independent, they adopted a constitution or a democratic system based on the Westminster and therefore the Commonwealth. And it is assumed, therefore, that the parliamentary institutions that we have are based upon the Westminster model. India's unique point really here is that even if the institutions are based mostly on the Westminster model, we have adopted models from the other countries, the practices from the other countries, including the USA, which is the oldest democracy, at least institutionally, but also because, as Pathikrit was saying, that we are a democracy not from 1947 onwards. We have been a democracy ever since we were thought of as a nation, as a civilization. We have been taught to question and argue and debate things in the interest of taking decisions which are acceptable to all. And I think that is the first parameter of democracy. Then there's a point number one, that India is an older democracy than the democratic institutions. Civilizationally, we are one. That is number one. Number two, more than institutions, what is important is inclusiveness, where people take part in the democratic functioning of the government, where people have a role to play how decisions are taken. And that is what the Honorable Speaker mentioned, how to ensure citizens' participation in the parliamentary democracy. Now, if we take these two on which we have actually functioned very effectively, and ever since we became independent, I think the parliamentary cooperation has taken place since 1969. Even before that, the delegations, International Parliamentary Union, the Parliamentary Association has been there even before the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association. And we have exchanged delegations under the IPA even before the Commonwealth. So therefore, our cooperation internationally has been a long-standing, even after independence and before the CPA came into being. Okay. Example, I would say like Sri Lanka. Even though the government, there have been changes in the government, our parliamentarians, take Nepal, our parliamentarians have been carrying the tradition, even if not formally, informally, they have been carrying the tradition of working together with each other in terms of seeing how we deal with the transition, how we deal with the changes of the country. And therefore, I would say we are uniquely placed to share our experiences. We are uniquely placed to talk about new technologies, but more importantly, the interface between people and the parliamentary practices to ensure that democracy is not just institutional, but it is civilizational.
Absolutely. There are so many best practices that India can now share with parliaments across the world, especially post the COVID. We've resorted to several new technologies that we are now using. Mr. Prasad, you've been covering the parliament. You can enlighten our viewers better on some of the best practices that we can share with parliaments. But before that, since you joined in now, a question to you first on the relevance and the importance of CSPOC. Ambassador spoke about the importance of democracy and democratic institutions. At a time when we are seeing, democratic values backsliding across various parts of the world, including in our neighborhood, how important, how relevant are platforms like the CSPOC in safeguarding and strengthening democratic institutions, democratic values?
Yeah, I think one of the principal objectives is, as you could say, innovative strategies to enhance public interface in understanding of parliament. And that's a crucial thing I personally also feel, because the more members of parliament interact with members of who are their constituents in particular. And in a country like ours, the constituents are run in lakhs, so it's not easy to keep in touch. But nowadays, with kind of technology, it's much easier to stay in communication. And it's very important for people to engage with the parliamentarians in the process of lawmaking. Right. Because what happens is parties do come up with their own ideas and policies, but that increasingly there's a engagement with the people. Members of parliament do get a better sense of what people are thinking about it. Not that they don't get it, but the wider participation of people is as important. It's not that you elect a member of parliament and forget all about him for the next 5 years. That is one aspect, as every voting member should remember that. The fact is, Indian Parliament has, as you said, over the period evolved. It has come as it's a big institution. It is built into institution. There are institutional checks and balances within. Procedures and policies and rules and procedures are governed. But at the same time, Parliament being the rules can be changed by the Parliament itself, by members themselves. So that flexibility does exist. It's not rigid. It's not cast in stone. There is always a way in which you can find it. There's a system in place. So that's one thing that it's very clear. But as I said, it's a very robust system. It has survived. It has thrived in the last 75 years that we are going to enter soon. And this is important because this is separate from what the IPU agenda is. It is separate from what the Common Parliamentary Association is. This is a very independent kind of conference, committee of all the presiding officers and speakers. This conference is, as you said, is a biennial, and the last was in Uganda. In fact, I think the number of, as the reports came in yesterday and the Honorable Speaker briefed the members of the media, if 50 plus countries are members, and I think more than 45 have confirmed to the last count, which is almost more than, I think in Uganda it was some 30 odd countries, that's it. So you can imagine people, that itself tells you how much people look up to India as a parliamentary democracy.
That's true. I think since 69, Dr. Nayan, we were speaking not just democratic institutions, but this forum has also evolved, catering to the changing times, the needs of the people, most importantly, connecting with people. And India has meticulously, devised the themes of CSPOC 2026, keeping in mind some of the challenges that democracies worldwide are facing. Social media, artificial intelligence are central themes. What are some of the best practices that India and the Indian Parliament can share with the smaller parliaments? Because CSPOC, we are seeing that the member countries, many of them are very, very small countries in different parts of the world. What are some of the best practices related to technology and its use, but also its the safeguards against its misuse that India can share with these countries?
Just to start with, Sansad TV kind of media should be there, which can just beam the voices across the country. So like it's a big check. Earlier I remember when I had to watch the proceedings of Parliament, I had to come to the Parliament to see it. So now people can watch. Now social media has come up. So now there are methods whereby you can watch how your parliamentarians or how your representatives are voicing in the House. So that is one good thing which India has really encouraged, and non-partisan approach. Once people are sitting here discussing and debating, what we find that at times yes, there is the party system exists in the country, but sometimes they go beyond party system. Once the vital interest of the country are involved, then the House rises above this partisan politics. So this is one good practice which I can say that India has demonstrated in its functioning. Third, I will say that what is required, yes, we have disruptions, but we realize that disruptions are to be managed. Disruptions are not to be encouraged. So this culture, this democratic culture, that Parliament is functioning, it is people's money, and people's money is to be respected. And so that is a big pressure, and that has worked. And in fact, it is advertised that how much money we just spent and how much money we just wasted by disrupting the House. So this has also somehow striking a balance between the protest, the need for protest and need for allowing the house to run. So this they can learn from the country. Now another invention you can say, or you can say the old institutions which have been somehow adapted or somehow it has been adapted to the modern needs. That is our committee systems. People may say that it is a British invention, the committee system they had to legitimize, which is not legal, but that's why this is the joke about the British Parliament. But we have used this body, and how we have used this body, why I'm highlighting it, that in this body you can call a specialist. Yes, representatives are, democracy requires representatives, in fact representatives of people run democracy and the functioning of the house, but you also need, because the complexity involved in today's world require some specialists also. So once you are deliberating, once you are legislating, or once you are even putting a check or you are discussing, forget about just legislating all the time, even if you are discussing an important vital issue of the country, then you need feedback, you need a specialized knowledge. So this is what our democracy has, or our parliament has demonstrated, that you can strike a balance between generalists, or you can say people's representatives and specialists, and their services are being used. And if you go to the report of the committees, which I am really impressed, you will find that different ministries, different agencies, all speak different voice at times, and they articulate the needs or they articulate the interest of the department, ministry or agencies they are supposed to represent, and then a balance is struck, and then parliamentarians take a view, or the government takes a view. So there are many things. Technology, I can talk about that how artificial intelligence is being also introduced. I will not say that we are there, but now we have realized that we have to introduce high tech also to solve many of the pressing problems, and the parliament is the body which is the ultimate house of managing the problems of not only the country, but also it can contribute to solving global challenges. So this is what we have realized, and we have been emphasizing on it time and again. And in fact, artificial intelligence like Commonwealth, just now one of the speakers talked about how Commonwealth was once rescinded. Why are we going to join Commonwealth? It is a body of our old, or headed by our old colonial master. But we also adapted this institution, and we did not use their crown or their king or queen as our heads of the state. So similarly, we have also adapted many of the institutions, or here also we are trying to strike a balance with the reach of the members, and we are trying to act as a bridge between the countries which are broadly called global south and those who are maybe global, I don't know, this global north concept is not there, but developed countries.
But at least it differentiates the manner in which India's approach of development cooperation is. Mr. Payne, let me come to you on that question. At a time when we've heard the Prime Minister often speak about how countries are weaponizing technology, India believes in the principle of Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam. In fact, that was our approach also during the G20 that we chaired back in 2023. Even now, on many occasions, we've heard the Prime Minister assert on how technology sharing is something which is the need of the hour in the interest of humanity. The fact that social media and artificial intelligence, AI, is being used rampantly across the world in different sectors, do you think the use and the misuse of handling AI and social media is something that India can help other countries with, especially in the manner in which it can be integrated with functioning of parliaments?
Well, first, in the context of technology, if you look at it, the digital revolution that happened in India has been a classic case of bridging rural-urban divide. In fact, the majority of the people in the rural India, or, street vendors, everyone is using a UPI for payment systems. And the manner in which it has bridged that divide, it's phenomenal. So if you look at it, while India became and emerged as the fourth largest economy of the world from the time it was among the fragile five economies in 2013. In 10 years, it became the fourth largest economy. It was the same time it uplifted 250 million people out of multidimensional poverty, which itself is a reflection of our inclusive democracy, that it takes everyone along. Secondly, on the issue of application of technology, let me put it this way. The biggest success of India is that even today, people of India have faith in the democracy. They have faith in the parliamentary democracy. They have faith in the voting system. They do believe that even if there are challenges, it is our democratic system which can solve it. Unfortunately, and because there will be members in this entire congregation that is happening, there will be members from the European countries as well. Unfortunately, it is the reality that there are certain foreign countries which have a stranglehold on the entire social and digital media space in terms of technology. Unfortunately, for quite some time, we have witnessed application of algorithms, application of artificial intelligence in terms of, provoking the young generation against their own democratically elected governments. That does not help. That is a real challenge. So, number one, in terms of ethics, in terms of its approach, I think India, it's no more that the West can teach the developing countries. There are things that India can also tell to the developed world in terms of how democracy has to be run. Secondly, there has to be checks and balances in terms of how AI is used. There has been rampant misuse of artificial intelligence and algorithms to promote anarchy, lawlessness, civil unrest in other countries. And it is India's, the credit goes to the parliamentary democracy, all political parties included, that in spite of all the problems, we have stayed together. That is because if you look at in some of the neighboring countries, it is not so. And if you see some of this unrest in our neighboring economies or other countries in Middle East and elsewhere, social media did play a critical role in terms of fomenting those violence.
Yes.
So there has to be some kind of a checks and measures. And last point is very important. Look at post-Operation Sindoor. When the parliamentary delegations went to various countries to put forward India's view of how things are, it was a multi-party representation, including people from opposition parties. That's number one. Number two, in India's concept of parliamentary democracy, even a single MP from a political party has the equal right to seek legislative amendments in a new act when it is getting passed, and that he is equally given the right to hear, to be heard or to speak. So these are the things that is important in India's context. Technology, civilizational ethos, value systems, and your concern for the poorest can go hand in hand. That itself has been shown by India. The new parliament building itself is a reflection of that, which is extremely modern in terms of its approach, application of technology, yet it is a cradle of India's civilizational ethos. We have moved forward from that Westminster model in terms of, not in terms of parliamentary democracy, I'm saying, but in terms of the legacy that was left behind by the British. And we have, amalgamated our own cultural ethos into the modern parliamentary system along with application of technology. So yes, there are many things India can teach, because as you grow, taking forward 1.5 billion people with diverse interests is not easy, and yet India takes them along. It itself is a reflection that it has been a great success. And I'm sure Prime Minister has mentioned about AI on several occasions, where AI has been a great multiplier effect it has in terms of improving lifestyles, in terms of bringing in entrepreneurship or making many startups successful. And I think at the same time, to ensure that there are the misuse can be stopped, I think parliaments together will have to take a decision. The biggest problem is there is no standard regulation on application of AI globally. There is no law. And that is where I think all the Commonwealth, Speakers Conference must also introspect and push forward that point to the United Nations.
Certainly. Ambassador, let me take that point across to you. Something that has been rightly pointed out, AI-driven communication tools are driving narratives, both domestically but also on the global stage, whether we like it or not. But even during Operation Sindoor, somewhere we were compelled to use different tools of communication to put our point across. Is India ready to bring that kind of transition, integrate AI responsibly into our parliamentary functioning, into parliamentary diplomacy, without compromising on accountability and, say, privacy? Please unmute, Ambassador.
I was thinking, Teena, why do you want to put me in a difficult spot like this? But let me try and answer the question to the best of my ability. Do you remember, Teena, the days of 1970s, 80s? We were talking about censorship on the media. Only certain things could be published. And what happened? Very soon, we found that the censorship or the films, we would say the certain kind of things cannot be put to the public. They are not mature enough to understand this. Children can't see these things, all kinds of things. Censorship didn't work. The good thing or the bad thing, either way you look at it, with the artificial India and the social media is what I would say democratization of information. You can put a block on the internet here. China did it. Iran is doing it. But still, people have been able to find out information from one source or the other, either way, because now the servers are located in each country, the information is everywhere, and all you need to do is that if you have the basic 5G chip, even if you stop the internet, you can access the information. Therefore, I would say the first point is democratization of information, which people can access with the right kind of tools, and that is where India comes in. India, large country, 1.3, 1.4 billion population, active democratically voting, and they're voting even in the rural areas. They're voting with an understanding of the political processes. I can tell you one thing, that the people at the lowest level, they understand their rights, they understand what they're in for, and they understand what the political parties stand for, whichever way they vote, but they do it understanding what the political parties are doing. And I think that is something that we can share our own experiences, parliamentary practices, use of AI in parliament, not just in terms of functioning of the parliament, but as a tool of democracy, as a tool of information dissemination, as a tool of creating narratives or avoiding false narratives. That's very, very important. I think that is one thing which India, as the oldest democracy and most technologically advanced democracy, can do. That is one thing, if you permit me to say. Number two, yes, sorry.
Yes, Ambassador, finish your point, please.
Okay. Number two, we have been sharing our experiences with the parliaments over a period of time. There are training programs for the parliament houses by the parliament under the different schemes. I take Commonwealth scholarships and all those things. I think it's time that really this session, after sharing their own experience in dealing with the AI, and I would really say there is no point really berating the others for what they are doing and creating. We can only deal with that by creating our own platforms, our own narrative. We should actually now have a cooperation program amongst the parliaments on how to use AI as an effective platform for information dissemination to the population, not just within the nation, but internationally, and train people, how to teach people to avoid falsehoods. You cannot stop falsehoods coming on the platform, but you have to tell them how to deal with it. Absolutely.
In this age of fake news flying thick and high across various platforms, Mr. Prasad, it's important to discuss these challenges that democracies worldwide are facing. I think in that context, the other focus of the CSPOC 2026 is citizen participation and making the citizens more aware about what steps the legislatures are taking for their well-being in the wake of multiple challenges. What is it that India brings to the table when it comes to issues like enhancing citizen engagement, making it a two-way functioning of legislature, both at the national level as well as at the state legislatures?
Yeah, I think it's very primary engagement, as I was talking even in the previous cycle, is the member of parliament knows of the constituents, the member of legislative assembly are aware of the constituents, their requirements, what are the issues at hand. But somehow some of the things get mixed up, because I remember very many years ago one former speaker, when he went to train a group of legislators in a new assembly, he said when members of parliament are approached for something which is to be done by the municipal corporation, lawmakers are supposed to deal with lawmaking and the larger policy issues. So people get to get confused. These lines should be reiterated. That for, we have a structure of governance in this country. There is various levels for which people are available for you to do public service. That's one thing which requires a primary understanding. Number one. Apart from that, we have a large constituency because the number of people are so many. We probably, when the redistricting or when we go in for delimitation after the next census, there will be enhancement of the number of seats and all that. That's the number of people. But the engagement becomes difficult when we have such a large number of people to talk to. For instance, I remember several years ago, one member of parliament was saying, even if I write one postcard to reach out to my constituents, my budget is over. So, that's outreach. So, but having said that, the modern technology makes it life easier.
In fact, my next question was that we've spoken about the challenges and the misuse of social media, but social media has also helped our parliamentarians get closer to people.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I remember the time when we started reporting parliament, we had members of parliament coming up to us to transmit their views to members of their constituents or their constituency, right? Over the period of time, when Lok Sabha TV came in, they had the advantage live telecast would allow them to reach to members. Third, they would take out the videos and send it to put up. And when the social media came in, they used that platform to reach to their member constituents. So increasingly, the outreach from member of parliament to his or her constituents is larger and almost immediate. In fact, yesterday, on Monday, when the Speaker Lok Sabha, Mr. Birla was mentioning, that probably by next year, within half an hour of the speech having been done by a member, and video will be available for the member to transmit on the social media. It's going to be that fast. And also AI would enable simultaneous translation, for which today you are using human beings. Over a period of time, all 22 Indian languages, you will get simultaneous translation of documents. So AI is being used for harnessing the technology for use, but they say there are certain systems that need to be put in place because accuracy and veracity is something prime. One issue is also social media and its use by member of parliament, right? You will be interesting to realize that about 3 years ago, the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association invited me to talk about social media and members of parliament to newly elected members of Dominica. And this was done over a platform. I didn't have to travel to Dominica, but it was a wonderful engagement. There were one journalist from South Africa, one journalist from England, the third journalist from India. So the big democracy, parliamentary democracies. And so social media is part of IPU's outreach. IPU wants members to use social media. IPU wants, and so is CPA, is encouraging people to use. They're in fact running certificate courses for parliamentary staff. UNESCO is running it. So everybody is into it. So it's members of parliament have to make use of it. If not the members of parliament, I think one aspect that we always look at is have professional staff, because they are the ones who are engaging more and more with the constituents.
That's true. While, there are so many efforts at various levels to ensure that the functioning of Parliament, the manner in which the parliamentarians operate, they get closer to people, and that people are aware of what the elected representatives are doing for their well-being and their welfare. We often see, Mr. Pathikrit Payne, that a lot of younger citizens feel disconnected when it comes to democratic institutions. How do you think platforms like CPA, CSPOC can ensure that parliaments and their functioning, and most importantly the elected representatives are connected, remain relevant to the younger generation, because ultimately whatever you are doing is for their well-being, for their future, and they need to understand your way of functioning as well. So I think the key challenge before countries will be to keep the youth engaged with these procedures and to gain their trust in democratic institutions, isn't it?
Absolutely. Well, Teena, I don't know what can be done in a 2-day program, but generally, if you see what happened in case of G20 in 2023, the kind of engagement that Prime Minister-led Government of India planned by having all those engagement groups, including a Y20 group, which was led by the youth, and they had programs all across the country, starting from universities to schools, all kinds of think tanks and NGOs were involved, and it was so inclusive in its own approach that eventually there was a huge buzz around the G20, and people started taking interest in terms of how relevant G20 is, how India made a fundamental difference by including African Union into the G20, and how G20 has become one of the key multilateral institutions which is being looked up to at a time when many other established institutions like the UN has been short of in terms of their performance. So I think engagement with the youth is important. And if you look at it, I completely agree with Ambassador Goel. I'm completely against any kind of censorship on any kind of social media or anything. But if you look at what is happening in social media, the kind of involvement of the young generation in social media, especially Twitter and Facebook, the kind of things they discuss on issues related to trade, the kind of issues they discuss on related to what happened in Venezuela or Iran, its implications on India, the fact that the generation, the Gen Z of India, refused to go in the same direction, perhaps in which people went in Bangladesh and Nepal, the manner in which the younger generation get inspired by social media or digital media programs on how entrepreneurs succeeded in India, the manner in which the Startup India program has become successful in terms of having more than 200,000 plus registered startups, the manner in which several deep tech companies are coming up. So, and you would see many of them are doing it not just for the sake of making money, they are extremely passionate about what they can contribute to the country. Many are actually thinking of or have already returned from United States or other countries to start something here. So I think today's generation in general, in principle, is far more connected and attached to the happenings in the country and India's position globally because of the social media, because of the connect that is there, which perhaps was not available maybe 30, 40 years back or 20 years back. So I think in general, they are very much interested. How these programs itself can be far more, interesting to young generation. I think just as it happens in case of parliaments, they are involved. Anybody can come into the parliament and watch the proceedings subject to certain conditions. I think involving the younger generations or having a young parliamentary forum, or something like that, would invariably help. In fact, Commonwealth itself has a youth division which does a lot of important programs. But today's democracy or India's running the country or involvement has perhaps in a way gone beyond parliament itself. The kind of discussions you see happening in social and digital media where people come up with the new ideas and they instantly tag the government, whether it's the Prime Minister or the concerned ministry, and the government in that way has been extremely proactive in terms of listening to those ideas. And many of those ideas have actually got implemented. So I think I agree with Ambassador Goel that it has helped in democratization, which is very true and which has gone beyond the realm of parliament. But the only thing I was talking about is that today it is very difficult to distinguish between a genuine video and an AI-made video. That is where a lot of misinformation is being spread out. We have seen in case of Operation Sindoor, and I think education in terms of distinguishing that has to be far more profound.
That's
but
right.
I think
that's why AI and the use of social media is the primary theme of the 28th CSPOC, which the Parliament of India is hosting. You rightly said our communication strategies over the years have deepened the understanding of our parliamentary functioning and the role of the lawmakers in that aspect as well. But I'm curious to know, Mr. Prasad, from you about the third point in the agenda. Very little time is left, but it talks about the security of MPs, the security and the well-being of the MPs, which is also one of the key items in the agenda. If you could, explain to us and our viewers about the importance of this in the agenda of the CSPOC that India is hosting. I think
it's both parliament and parliamentary staff here. And I think it's this is a running theme, actually. If you look at it, it was there the previous summits too. Probably some countries where these things are there, where members of parliament are susceptible to pressures in terms of physical or some kind of a So this is a very possible area, but they need security because they're doing a social service, a public service. They've been elected to do the job, and staff attached to members of parliament are more at risk at many a time. So because they are the ones who are actually dealing, the frontline workers for the member of parliament. They are the ones who are there in the first line of defense, if you so to use the word. So I think it's, but well-being should also not just be restricted to security aspect or physical, but I also read the well-being as a holistic approach. Because that's what you need to perform on a regular basis. And if you read an average daily calendar of a daily diary of a member of parliament, it starts probably at 7 in the morning or earlier and continues to midnight.
Okay, so to wrap up this important conversation, Ambassador, one last question to you on what diplomatic dividends should India expect at the end of CSPOC 2026? We've discussed at length about the agenda, about the importance of the forum as such, and how it has evolved over the years. But based on what India intends to bring to the table in the 28th edition of the CSPOC, what could be the significant outcomes?
I will not go into the details of the outcome, but very briefly, I will talk more at the strategic level. What I see happening around, particularly over the last 1 year, ever since the changes in the USA, is that the whole international order seems to be coming down. Huge disruptions, not just disruptions, but the changes that we had never thought of. And we have to think of the new ideas in terms of maintaining the kind of relationship between the countries that we are used to. And the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association and the meeting of the democratic countries at the level of the speakers would indicate Indian credentials, would endorse Indian credentials in terms of being what it is, not just as one nation amongst many, but truly the Vishwabandhu, truly the leader of the world in maintaining.
Okay, with that we have to call it a wrap. Yes. Time allows us to take up only that much on the program. Thank you once again, gentlemen, for joining us for this very important conversation on the 28th CSPOC that India is set to host from the 14th to 16th of January. The formal inauguration will be done on the 15th by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. That's it from us on this broadcast. Thank you very much for your time.